Talk to us about the data backdrop, how traders are reading it, and what it means for rates.
Well, I think first I want to go on what Stuart just mentioned, and you just asked about, Carol, about the job market. So my son just finished a seasonal job at Six Flags. He went into an interview yesterday at 8 a.m. At 9 a.m. he was working. And this is a manual labor kind of job,
cool.
And he's 18 years old, high school graduate, is kind of taking a gap year. So, I mean, there's jobs out there if you're willing to, do these manual jobs. But anyway.
Congratulations, Dad.
Exactly.
No, but this is good. You're right. It shows that there are the jobs out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's very anecdotal, right? But at the same time, I think it tells a little bit of the story. But, that being said, the market is certainly priced for a cut next week. But what's interesting is that we're then not priced for another cut for sure until next May, right? So it's like, is this one and done? Is this one and then options? I suspect that the Fed is going to continue to worry about the labor market. And as soon as we start to see more labor market data, if that labor market's not particularly good, then they'll continue to be easy, right? And maybe not cut every meeting, but at the same time be on the more cautious, easier side. And then the second thing is your discussion about the Beige Book was really interesting because we
I love the Beige Book.
Yes, well, a lot of people do, and the Fed does, right?
Yeah.
We know that the Fed overweights it. Powell certainly does.
This is a much more granular look at what's going on as opposed to some of the other data that we get.
Yeah, but it is survey based, right? It is like comments that are made by different people that members of the different Fed banks speak with regularly. But it's important to the Fed, and one of the things that we do is we parse it using a natural language processing model that we have, and what that showed is that it's in the last reading is that it was much more dovish than it was the previous two meetings. So it was overall pretty weak, and I think that because of that, that's one reason to think that the Fed is going to hike next week. And if you continue to see that weakness, I think that they'll cut even more in the first half, and that might be a little bit different than what other people are thinking.
I love that you said dovish because I want to get to someone who has kind of a more hawkish perspective. Greg Peters, Co-Chief Investment Officer at PGIM Fixed Income, member of the Treasury Borrowing Advisory Committee. He spoke to our Bloomberg colleagues in Asia overnight about what he expects from the Fed. He also talked about the expectations of maybe a Kevin Hassett Fed. First up, though, he addressed next week's meeting. Listen up, everybody.
We will have a hawkish cut, coming up, but I'm not sure there's a lot of information coming out of that meeting, right? I think the markets are focused on what happens next, and what happens next is the new Fed chair, the new composition, and quite candidly, the meddling of the administration in Fed affairs. The market has reacted since the betting markets have, raised the probability last week. The bond market has performed quite poorly. So the bond market's telling you that there are some concerns there. But on one hand, you have the Fed independence question, with Hassett as, basically tied to the administration. But on the other, does he have the credibility within the committee to drive consensus? And so we don't know that answer. I don't think he has that credibility. I think that's what the bond market's telling you.
The narratives that are out there. Hey, Greg Peters, Co-Chief Investment Officer at PGIM Fixed Income. I want to just ask as we wrap up here, and first to you, Ira, I mean, what's more important next week? Is it the Fed under Jay Powell, what he says and does next week, or our expectations around what a Fed could be with Kevin Hassett as Fed chair?
Well, I think next week it's the summary of economic projections, right? Because you're going to cut.
I forgot we get that.
Yeah, the summary of economic projections and the dot plot will probably be what moves my market. 2-year yields in particular, I think if you see any decline in the median dot, that you're going to wind up seeing 2-year yields probably rally even as much as 15 basis points in a hurry.
All right, good stuff. Stuart, your last thought on that. What do you think is more important?
Dot plot matters way more. I think
so neither of my choices. Oops.
Dot plot matters way more, and I'm actually really worried about the distribution of dots showing two emerging camps. You're going to have some folks, again, looking to guard against the labor market, but we also know that next year's slate of voters from the regional Federal Reserve banks are going to be quite a bit more hawkish than this year's regional Fed.
Inflation's still back there, guys, as a backdrop.
I agree. Right? It's still there. It's inflationary pressures that are out there.
That's right. I mean, look, we still have inflationary pressures. Just tomorrow, we're going to get the much delayed September personal income and outlays report with PCE inflation. The annual pace of PCE inflation, core PCE inflation, is still going to be running 2.9%. Right. It's not the sort of thing that's going to that's not the sort of thing that's going to alleviate concerns around inflation pressures. I think that the thing that probably matters more is that services inflation pressure is softening. And again, that just, focuses the Fed back on the labor market.
Or the Fed could